Let us study evolution in detail. First we will study what is meant by evolution. Evolution is the slow and a steady process which is happening in the organisms for a long period of time. Here, theoretically we studied what is meant by evolution. Now, with the help of some proofs, we can be able to clarify our doubts regarding evolution. Now, there are different types of evidences, or we can say different proofs related to evolution. First one we can say as morphological evidences. Second one, anatomical evidences. Third one, vestigial organs. Fourth one, paleontological evidences. Then fifth one we can say is connecting links. Then sixth one we can say is embryological evidences. Here there are six types of or six evidences shown that evolution is occurring in the nature. Now the first one, that is morphological evidences. Second one, anatomical evidences. Third one, vestigial organs. Fourth one, paleontological evidences. Fifth one, connecting links. Sixth one, embryological evidences. Now we will study first we will study morphological evidences. Now, what is morphological evidence? Morphology means external appearance. Now, in case of any type of organisms we can see. Now, cat, dog, goat, cow, like that way different organisms if we consider, they all are having a common feature, that means all are having fur on their body. Then their eyes, where it is present, their nose, its a structure. Again we can say their mouth, where it is fitted. So like that way if we are seeing their general features, or we can say their external features, we can say that almost similar appearance is there. So from this we can conclude that they all are having a common origin. Now if we consider about plants, all plants are having leaves. Now, if we think of their venation, in case of dicotyledonous plants, they are having reticulate venation. At the same time, in case of monocotyledonous plants, they are having parallel venation. Now we will study in detail. Here, if we are thinking of morphological evidences, we are taking the example of cows, buffaloes, dogs, cats, then we can say lions, tigers, then monkeys, rabbits. Like that way if you are taking or if you are considering different organisms. Now again we can say that they all are coming under mammals. We can say that they all are mammals. Mammals feature, they all are having mammary glands. Mammary glands. Mammary glands, it's a meaning they have milk giving glands to their young ones. Now other feature, they all are having fur on their body. Fur means a small hair on their body. Other thing, their eyes. If we are seeing all organisms, all these organisms, their eyes where it is fixed, their nostril, their mouth, everything means having a common feature we can see. Even their ears having a common feature. Then legs, if we consider, all are having 4 legs for walking. So like that way means a general external feature if you are seeing, we will feel that all are having a common origin. They all are having a common origin. At the same time, we can say that all organisms are not alike. In their body, some changes are there. So, such a changes from one organism to other organism and other organism to other organism. So, for occurring that, many years have taken. Now, so such a slow and steady changes occurred from one organism to other organism and from other organism to other organism. That is known as evolution. Now here we can say that this is, I have explained only by seeing their external feature. So we can say that this is an example of morphological evidence. Morphological evidence means by looking at their external feature, which all similarities and which all differences are present in the organism, that we can be able to find out. Now, so morphology means what? That is the external feature. External feature means when we look at them, which all things we are seeing in common as well as in different condition. Common feature means many are there. Similarly, different feature also we can be able to study. So, different feature which all things happen, that is known as evolution. So, we have studied now what is shown in the morphological evidence. When we think of plants, as I told you, all plants are having leaves. Now, there are 2 types of plants. One is known as dicotyledonous plants. Other one we can say as monocotyledonous plants. Now, dicotyledonous plants as well as monocotyledonous plants. Why we are calling them as dicotyledonous plants as well as monocotyledonous plants? In case of dicotyledonous plants, they are having 2 cotyledons in their seeds. In case, we can say, for that examples I am saying you now. First example I am saying you peanuts. Second one I am saying you cashew nuts. Now peanuts, first we have to remove its skin. After that, when we just break it, you will find that 2 pieces of peanuts. That means peanut itself is having 2 halves we can say. Now when we are thinking of cashew nut, again we can say that it has 2 halves. Now all types of pulses, if you are seeing, again we can say. Now moong we can say green colored pulse it is. Similarly, all types of pulses are having 2 halves you can say. One seed if you are breaking, just like that way if you are breaking, we will find that 2 pieces, that is known as 2 halves of it. So that is known as dicotyledons. Now, in case of monocotyledonous plants, for that I am saying you example, coconut. Coconut, its specialty what is there? First example, coconut. Then other example I can say, all types of cereals. Cereals means we can say rice, wheat, maize, etc. They have only 1 cotyledon, only 1 half is there, 1 piece is there. The seed, if you are trying to open like that, then also 2 halves won't form, only single half will be there. Now, here one diagram I am showing you. In case of any pea, one part like that will be there, again other part we will get like this. So here now two halves we are getting. In case of peanut, cashew nut, pea plants, any type of pulses we will get like that way, two halves from one seed. Easily I can see. No need of breaking it, just we have to move it, it will open into two halves. So such type of plants, in case of pulses, means a dried one will be there, then it is very difficult to us, so we have to soak it in water. Even I can say that badam, that thing we have to, that seed we have to soak it in water one whole night. Then afterwards when we are, next day morning just open it, you have to remove its skin, you will get two halves. So we can say that badam, cashew nut, then all types of pulses, then peanut, all these are the examples of dicotyledonous seeds. Now here monocotyledonous seeds, for that all cereals are coming under monocotyledonous plants, all types, means most of the plant, most of the grasses coming under monocotyledonous plants. Then we can say coconut tree, even arecanut tree. You might be heard about the supari. That is again an example of monocotyledonous plant. Now here, this coconut also we have, if we want to break it, we have to break with the help of a knife. On its own it won't become two halves. Then cereals, rice and all you might be seen, only single cotyledon is there. So we can say that this is again an example of which one? Monocotyledonous plants. This is the example of dicotyledonous plants. Now all dicotyledonous plants are having a common feature if we are studying about their seeds. All monocotyledonous plants are having a common feature if you are studying about their seeds. Now if you are thinking about their leaves, in case of dicotyledonous plants, if we are thinking of their leaves, you can find that this is known as a venation. This is a venation. Again, these veins getting more and more branches. Here means there are different examples. Again we can say mango tree, jack tree, then peepal tree, like various plants are there. Rose plant we can say, then hibiscus plant. It's all leaves are having such a type of venation. This is known as reticulate venation. Reticulate venation. So all types of dicotyledonous plants are having such a venation. This kind of venation is known as reticulate venation. So we can say that all dicotyledonous plants are having a common origin. Now here, when we are thinking of monocotyledonous plants, we can say that in case of grasses, you can see that their leaves are having parallel venation. Such a straight condition you can see the venation. This is known as a parallel venation. We can say even bamboo leaves having parallel venation. Now if you are thinking about banana plant, its venation also known as parallel venation. We are studying about banana plant. It will have one midrib, main one rib will be there. After that you can see that like that way parallel venation will be there. So in case of monocotyledonous plants, all types of, now rice plant, wheat plant, even bamboo plant, these all plants are having such a type of parallel venation. At the same time, when we are studying about a banana plant, you will find such a type of venation. This type of venation also known as parallel venation. Now one more speciality, if we are comparing both of them, we will feel that here such a way petiole will be there. Here also petiole is there, here also petiole is there. Now other thing, when we are thinking of their roots, we can say that in case of dicotyledonous plants, they are having one main root will be there. From here stem is beginning. So one main root will be there. Then that will be having other branches. Again it will have other branches. Again it will have other branches. Like that. So this main root, this is known as taproot. Then secondary, tertiary, like that way. This is, we can say that, first root, main root. After that, secondary, tertiary, like that way, different types of roots will be there to the dicotyledonous plants. All types of dicotyledonous plants will have taproot system. Now, when we are thinking of monocotyledonous plants, we can say that here now, this is its upper part, we can say. That means the part of the plant which is growing upside. Now downside, it will be having such a roots. It won't have any main root. Then it will have root hairs will be there like that. So we can say that fibrous root they are having. Fiber like roots they are having. So we are saying that fibrous root system. So here now they are not, in case of monocotyledonous plants, they are not having any taproot system, no single main root. They all are similar. All roots are having similar structure is there. Fiber like structure is there. So that is the specialty of all monocotyledonous plants. But when we study about dicotyledonous plants, they all are having one taproot or main root. After that, its branches will be there. So looking at their external feature, these all are the external feature. We can say that here, these all monocotyledonous plants having a common origin. Here when we are seeing about the dicotyledonous plants, all dicotyledonous plants are having a common feature. So because of that, we can say that they all are having a common origin. So we can say that from this we can understand that this is giving us an evidence of morphological structure. Now we can say that here when we study about all dicotyledonous plants, all plants are not alike. They are having so much variations. We can say they are from smaller plants to the bigger plants. So much changes occurred in them. So even though such common features all dicotyledonous plants are having, so we can say that they all are having a common feature. So we can say that this is again an example of morphological evidence which is showing by the dicotyledonous plants. When we come to here, in case of monocotyledonous plants, here again we can say from small grasses to large coconut tree, even various types of palm tree you can see, all plants are coming under monocotyledonous plants. All are having such a fibrous roots. Even their leaves having parallel venation. Now again, when we are studying about their seeds, you can find that they are having only which type of seeds? They are having, in the seeds, they will be having only one cotyledon. In case of dicotyledonous plants, if we see, they will have two cotyledons. But when we study about the monocotyledonous plants, they will have only single cotyledon. Now, all monocotyledonous plants, when we study, we will find that so much variations are there when we are studying about the smaller plant to higher plants. But at the same time, many similarities also we can be able to see. So, seeing their similarity, we can say that they all are from a common ancestor, or we can say they all are having a common origin. Now we will study anatomical evidences. Now what is meant by anatomical evidences? Anatomical evidences means by looking at the internal structure of the organisms, we have to see that whether there is any similarity between different organisms. Here there are different organisms like human beings, cats, then bats, then whales. Here we are comparing their forelimbs. Human beings, hands, then cats, forelimb or foreleg we can say. Then in case of bat, it's a forelimb that is known as patagium. Then in case of whale, it's a flipper. That means these all things are of forelimbs. Here human beings forelimbs, that is their hands. Cats forelimb, that is their front legs. Then patagium of a bat, that is its a wing-like structure. Then in case of whale, it's a flipper, that is it's a swimming or like a work it is doing. That means for swimming purpose it is using. That is it's a front leg we can say. Now here when we compare patagium of bat, flipper of whale, then foreleg of cat, then hands of, or hand I am writing here, hand of human being. All these things are formed by joining many bones, B-O-N-E-S. Many bones join together our hand became. We can say from here we are seeing here one long bone, here again long bone. That is also having means the two bones joined together. Like that all condition will be there. Again here this wrist region many bones joins. Then here this part palm region we can say many bones. Even then finger part many bones joins. So we can say that one particular organ is formed. That means our hand is formed by joining many bones. Similarly we can say in case of foreleg of cats. There again we can say that many bones join together. It's a foreleg formed. Now in case of whale it's a flippers. That is also formed by joining many bones. Here again we can say in case of bat, it's also patagium formed by joining many bones. So from this we can say that all these organisms are having a similar feature is there or a common feature is there. So from this we can understand that all these organisms are having a common ancestor or we can say a common origin. Common origin or we can say common ancestor. So in this way we can say that here again all these organisms are not looking alike. Their internal organs are having, we can say, many similarities, at the same time many differences also there. Because of that we can say that they all are having similar properties there. Because of that we can say they all are having similar common origin or common ancestor. Differences are there, that is because of evolution. Evolution already I had explained. A gradual change is occurring in organisms. As a result of it, all organisms are not alike. Vestigial organs. Vestigial organs are degenerated or underdeveloped organs, and they have no special purpose in our body. We can say that they are useless organs of the organisms. So we can say that what is meant by vestigial organs? Vestigial organs are degenerated or underdeveloped organs. We can say that they have no special purpose in the body. They are the useless organs of the organisms. One more important thing, for one organism it may be a useless organ. At the same time that may be a useful organ to the other organism. Here we are going to study few examples of vestigial organs. First thing I am saying you, body hair. Second thing, appendix. Third thing, ear pinna. Fourth thing we can say that is tailbone, or we can say as coccyx. Then so here now body hair is there, appendix is there, ear pinna is there, tailbone or coccyx is there. Then one more is there, that is wisdom teeth. There are many examples. So here we are studying more on these 5 structures. In case of other animals, we can see, other than human beings, their whole body is having hair cover. That is giving protection from severe cold. At the same time, to us, that means in case of human body, you can find that on human body, hair you can see, but it is not having special function. Now, when we think of our ear pinna, we are having ear pinna, but it has no special purpose. But in case of other animals, this ear pinna is helping them for collecting all sounds. From where sound is coming, for collecting that information, they are having the capacity to move their ear pinna. But we are not having any capacity to move our ear pinna. Other animals, if you are seeing, you can find that they are having a cone like ear pinna, and that can be able to move here and there for collecting sound waves. Now, when we study about appendix, we are having appendix. Now, the position of appendix I will show you now. Now, in case of human beings, we are having small intestine, then after that we are having large intestine, where large intestine is beginning. That spot is having a worm like part is there. This is known as appendix. So here we can say that this is our small intestine, this is the beginning of large intestine. This is our large intestine. Large intestine is positioned like this. Like that it is going. So here we can see that the beginning of, from, this is the end part of the small intestine, this is the beginning of the large intestine. Here we can find the appendix. In case of human beings, this appendix has no function, but if this organ is getting any problem, then that will affect our health, even death is possible. Because of that, any appendix related problem comes, doctors operate and remove this organ from our body. So without this organ we can survive, there will be no problem of survival. But if any problem is getting to this organ, anyhow it has to remove. In human beings, this organ has no function, but this organ is present in our body. That is showing that we came from a common ancestor. Because in case of all other ruminants means we can say that all grass eating animals, leaving elephant we can say. Because once they eat grass, eating time they eat very fast. Then when they rest, that particular time they regurgitate the eaten grass once again towards their mouth. Then slowly they chew and swallow. As and when they eat grass, they do the eating process very fast without chewing well. But when they rest, that time again they bring back the eaten grass into their mouth, then they chew well. These kinds of organisms are known as ruminants. All grass eating animals except elephant we can say as ruminants. In their body, a large appendix is present. But in case of us, appendix is present, but it is a very small organ. It has no special function in our body. So we can say that this appendix is a vestigial organ in our body. Ear pinna we had studied. Ear pinna also a vestigial organ. Before that we said on our body, hair you can see, it has no special function. So that is also a vestigial organ. Now we will study about tailbone or coccyx. In case of living human beings, we can say that even apes, other organisms are having tails. In place of tail, we are having tailbone. That tailbone is having similarity with tailbones present in other organisms. In our body, the position of the tail, their tailbone is there, but it has no function. So we can say that is, again we can count as vestigial organ in our body. Now, other vestigial organ, that is wisdom teeth. Wisdom teeth means here this part, here lower jaw has 2, upper jaw has 2. Here similarly lower jaw has 2, upper jaw has 2. So total 4 wisdom teeth we are having. This wisdom teeth starts developing or starts growing after 18 years. Actually this wisdom teeth has no function in our body, but it is present in our body. Again we can say that it is showing that we came from, or we are having a common origin. In our body, the wisdom teeth has no function, no purpose. But if any problem getting to the wisdom teeth, that will give us toothache. But it is not useful for chewing food items. So we can say that again, this wisdom teeth is a functionless organ in our body. But it is present in our body, so we can say that is again a useless organ present in our body. So we can say that it is an example of vestigial organ. So here we have studied 5 vestigial organs. First thing we can say that body hair has no function in our body, but they have function in other organisms. Second thing we can say that appendix. In our body it has no function, but in other organisms it has more function, especially in ruminants. Ruminants means grass eating animals. Third thing we can say is ear pinna. In our body ear pinna is there. It is immovable one. It cannot move. It has no special function in our body, but at the same time other organisms ear pinna has a main role or big role. Now in case of human beings, the tailbone is present, but it has no special function. So we can say that in our body it is acting like a vestigial organ. Now wisdom teeth, we have wisdom teeth, 4 wisdom teeth we are having. It is developing after 18 years of age, but it has no function of chewing. So again we can say that it is an example of vestigial organ in our body. Now all these vestigial organs are present in all organisms we can see. But some organisms it has no function, some organisms it has function. So from or by seeing all these vestigial organs, we can say that we all are having a common origin or a common ancestor. Now we will study about paleontological evidences. What is meant by paleontology? Paleontology is the study of fossils. Now how fossils are forming in the earth? We can say that so much disasters are occurring on the earth. Example, flood, then volcano, earthquake, etc. As a result of it, many bodies of organisms got buried under the earth. Large number of organisms, body as well as their parts of the body, escape from destruction and preserved in the earth. This is known as fossils. Study of fossils is an important feature or important aspect of study of evolution. For studying about paleontology as well as anthropology, carbon dating is very important. Now, what is paleontology? Paleontology is the study of fossils. Then, what is anthropology? Anthropology is the study of human society and culture and their development. Now, what is carbon dating? In living things, carbon 14 and carbon 12, two isotopes are there. Till they die, the number of isotopes of carbon 14 and carbon 12 will be equal. Now, when they die, the carbon 14's number will be keep on changing. Why? Because carbon 14 is an radioactive element, isotope. Carbon 14 is a radioactive isotope. At the same time, carbon 12 is a non-radioactive isotope. When an organism lives, during that time, the isotopes number, isotopes of carbon 14 and carbon 12 remains constant. Each and every organism's same ratio will be there when they live. But once they die, radioactive isotope of carbon 14 keep on decaying or its number keep on reducing. As a result of it, in the dead bodies of organisms, we can find that the ratio between carbon 14 to carbon 12 will be different. The ratio between the isotope of carbon 14 to carbon 12 is known as carbon dating. Carbon dating. This carbon dating is very helpful to know about the or very helpful to study the paleontology as well as anthropology. That means it is very much helpful for the study of fossils as well as manuscripts. Now, what is meant by manuscripts? This carbon dating is very much helpful for the study of the age of the books, musics or documents written with the help of hand, or we can say handwritten books, handwritten documents, handwritten music. Its all age can be able to determine with the help of carbon dating. Even we can say with the help of carbon dating, when a body or when a person die or when an organism die, from or since then till now, the period or time how much passed, for determining we can use carbon dating method. Now we will study about connecting links. What is meant by connecting links? Some plants and animals show some morphological or external features by which they can be related to two different organisms. They are known as connecting links. Here we are having three examples with us. First one, that is duck-billed platypus. Second one, lungfish. third one, that is peripatus. Here for connecting links we have three examples. First one, duck-billed platypus. Bill means beak. Duck, its a beak, how it is there. Same way, this platypus, its a mouth region is there. Second one, lungfish. Third one, peripatus. These three are the examples of connecting links which we are going to study here. Even in plants, there are some examples of connecting links, but here we are studying about only these animals. Platypus has relationship between reptiles as well as mammals. Now here, when we study about platypus, platypus shows relationship between reptiles as well as mammals. Now, platypus has the capacity to lay eggs like reptiles. They lay eggs. So we can say that platypus shows both the animals' characters. That means a reptile's character as well as mammal's character. Reptiles means what? Snakes, then we can say crocodile, then lizards. Their character as well as mammals. Mammals means all milk giving animals. Their character also it shows. So here now we can say that it has reptiles like egg laying character. Mammals like mammary glands present. That means milk giving glands present, as well as hair present. That means on its body a coating of hair will be there. So we can say that duck-billed platypus or platypus shows connecting link between reptiles as well as mammals. They lay eggs like reptiles and they have mammary glands as well as hair like mammals. Now we are studying about lungfish. Lungfish respire air with the help of lungs. In case of fish, they respire with the help of gills. But in case of lungfish, they respire with the help of lungs. Now, peripatus. Peripatus shows relationship between, or we can say characteristics of both the organisms. That means Annelida, we can say that phylum Annelida as well as phylum Arthropoda. So we can say that peripatus shows the characteristics of both the organisms. That means we can say annelid's character as well as arthropod's character. Both the characters showing by peripatus. So we can say that peripatus is the connecting link between annelida as well as arthropoda. So once again we will study platypus, that is duck-billed platypus shows two types of organisms character. We can say that reptiles character as well as mammals character. So we can say that platypus shows, or platypus is the connecting link between reptiles as well as mammals. Lungfish respire with the help of lungs. So we can say that this lungfish shows connecting link between fish as well as amphibians, we can say. Then peripatus shows connecting link between annelida as well as arthropoda. From connecting links we can understand that mammals evolved from reptiles and amphibians evolved from fishes. Now we will study about embryological evidence. In the beginning stage or starting stage of the embryos of all organisms, for example we can say fish, then amphibians, reptiles, then birds, mammals, if we study about them or if we do close observation of early stages of embryos of all these organisms are alike. Then slow and slow changes are occurring in the developmental stages of embryo. Then you can find that differences. But in the beginning stage of the formation of embryo are alike. From this we can understand that we all organisms evolved from a common ancestor or from a common origin. Now we will study about Darwin's theory of natural selection. Charles Darwin, that is his full name. He collected many plants as well as animal specimens. That means many plants as well as animals he had collected. After that, he studied in detail about each and every organisms. Then he published a theory. That theory is known as survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest. Now, for this concept, he prepared or by using or with the help of this idea, he had prepared one book. That book is known as Origin of Species. Origin of Species. So here we can say that after collecting plants as well as animal species, he gone through, he studied, he observed them. After that, he published a theory. That theory is known as survival of the fittest. Now, with the help of this theory, he made or he prepared a book. That book is known as Origin of Species. Now, he explained after or in these two things. We can say that the theory he prepared, after that we can say that he published that. After that he prepared one book related to that. Then in that what is explained, that I am saying you now. Darwin says that all organisms have the capacity to reproduce prolifically. Prolifically means abundantly, or many organisms reproducing capacity they are having. So one organism can reproduce many. Now, each and every organisms are compete with each other in their living process. Those who win in that competition, they survive. He says that in the natural selection, those who survive, they show modifications. We can say that they evolve, they show some evolution. They survive. Those who cannot compete, they die, or we can say rest of them die. Those who survive, they show some modifications. Then new organisms will form. Again they show some modifications. Then here those who are able to survive or those who compete with others, in that competition those who win, they survive, others, that means rest will die. Now in his theory or in his book, which all things he had explained, most of them were very much accepted by the public. Only few things unable to accept by the public, which are not related to evolution. Some objections raised against his theory. They are, first one, natural selection is not the only factor responsible for evolution. Second thing, Darwin did not mention any explanation about useful as well as useless modifications. Third objection, there is no explanation about slow changes as well as abrupt changes. So these three are the main objections against Darwin's natural selection. So we will study once again which are the different objections about natural selection of Darwin. First thing, natural selection is not the only factor responsible for evolution. Second thing, Darwin did not mention any explanation about useful and useless modifications. Third objection, there is no explanation about slow changes and abrupt changes. Abrupt changes means sudden or quick changes, or we can say unexpected changes. Leaving all these objections, Darwin's theory on evolution was widely accepted by all. Let us study Lamarckism, or we can say as theory of inheritance of acquired characters. The theory of Lamarckism is proposed by Jean-Baptiste Lamarck. Jean-Baptiste Lamarck is the name of the scientist who proposed a theory. That theory is known as Lamarckism, or theory of inheritance of acquired characters. He said that morphological changes, that means external changes which are occurring in the organisms, is responsible for evolution. He said that these morphological changes are occurring because of activities or laziness of organisms. Activities or laziness of organisms. With few examples, he proved that. Those examples only shown here. First thing, neck of giraffes. Long time ago, the neck of giraffe was short like horses. They were depending on leaves of trees. For getting leaves from heighted trees, they started to pull their neck towards the heighted leaves. As a result of it, after many generations, their neck became so long, like now how the giraffe is looking. Other example, wings of ostrich as well as emu. Emu is also almost same as ostrich. These two types of birds are very heavy. They have the capacity to run very fast. At the same time, they fly very rarely. Because of that, their wings became very weak. So we can say that here weakness or laziness, we can say. They are not moving their wings for flying, only they run. Here we can say that their activities. Why? Because for getting leaves from heighted plants, giraffes used to pull their neck. As a result of it, their neck became long. Here in case of emu as well as ostrich birds, they are not using their wings for flying. We can say that because of their heavy weight. As a result of it, slow, their wings became weak. Now they are unable to fly. Other thing, in case of duck as well as swan, they always swim in the water. As a result of it, their legs became strong, as well as we can say that their legs modified for swimming. So we can say that this is a kind of acquired character. They have wings, but most of the time they use their legs for swimming. As a result of it, in case of duck as well as swan, modification occurred in their legs. Now, in case of snakes, long before, we can say many years ago, snakes were having legs. Because of their burrowing character, they live in burrows. After many years, we can say, these snakes became legless creatures. So, from all these examples, we can say that these all organisms acquired characters. Acquired means gained characters, and they transferred from one generation to other generation. That means which all characters they acquired, they gained. That gained character they transferred to other generation. So this is known as Lamarckism or theory of inheritance of acquired characters. This Lamarckism or theory of inheritance of acquired character was proposed by Jean-Baptiste Lamarck. Now he said that the organisms acquired such characters, that is because of two factors. One is because of their activities, other thing because of their laziness. If they use a particular organ more and more time, then that particular organ will become more stronger. If a particular organ is not using it, then that organ will become weak. Now one more example is there. That means in case of blacksmith. Blacksmith keep on hitting iron objects with very much heavy hammers. As a result of it, his shoulder part as well as hand becomes or became strong. So we can say that the blacksmith continuously uses hammers for hitting on other objects. Because of that, their shoulder part becomes more and more stronger. So we can say that that is also an acquired character. Now even we can say that gymnastics, those who do gyms, their body, their hand, their leg, their body parts all becomes stronger. They are also human beings, but when we look at them, we can find that how much strong people they. Why? Because they acquired such abilities, such characters, that is because of their activities, what they do. If we don't do any kind of activities, then our organs, our hand, our legs, our body parts will become weak. So from Lamarck, we got such a theory, that is theory of inheritance of acquired characters. Acquired character, gaining, we gain the characters, we gain abilities, that is only because of the activities what we do.